Hi, I'm Jonathan. If you haven't seen my previous video where I unbox all 7 of the original Mighty Morphin Power Ranger helmets from Aniki Cosplay and kind of give you my thoughts on each of them, I'll leave a link in the description down below. I wanted to use this video specifically to talk about my customer service experience with Aniki Cosplay, which, relatively speaking, was fairly good. Now, I don't mean to discredit or disprove anyone else's experience with the company. I can only speak to my own, but I wanted to give you kind of a timeline of when I placed my order, all the correspondence in between, and when I ultimately received my completed order. So I took advantage of a sale Aniki was promoting. It was either a Christmas sale or a New Year's sale. Each helmet was priced at $195. And I decided to go big and go for all 7 at once. I was familiar with Aniki Cosplay peripherally. I followed them on Facebook and Instagram. I followed several cosplay creators. Wild Ranger 5 is another that comes to mind who also does great work. But there was a sale, and from what I did know about Aniki, based on posts and YouTube reviews that I'd seen, I knew that delivery times could vary wildly, and more often than not, his estimated completion time was always longer. So rather than order 2 or 3 or 4 of them, possibly get them in 2+ years, love them, want the rest, place that order, I didn't want to stretch this thing to 5+ years if I could avoid it. So I thought, you know what, let's just go ahead and go in for all 7. So I placed my order on December 31st, 2019. And, once I was in it and I'd spent real money, north of $1,300, that's when I kind of foolishly decided to really delve deep into Aniki. So I was visiting his Facebook page frequently, reading a ton of comments, diving deep into YouTube reviews, all of which I should have done prior to ordering. And I would say that to if you're going to spend this kind of coin on anything cosplay related, do your homework, do your research, and only make a purchase that you're comfortable with. So after making the purchase, I was reading, almost exclusively angry customer reviews. People who placed orders, large orders, spent real money, and years had passed, 2 years, 3 years, 5+ years in rare occurrences. And not only had they never received their product, but in a lot of instances, correspondence completely ended with Aniki. So I immediately, very early in January, had buyer's remorse. I was freaking out, thinking that I had, just flushed away all of this money. So it was probably the second week in January of 2020 that I was reaching out to Aniki by email, insisting that I'd like my money back. I was in over my head. Aniki was quick to respond to say that they don't issue refunds. But the staffer I was corresponding with wanted to know, why was I having second thoughts? What was I concerned about? And I was upfront about it. I was reading a lot of negativity, a lot of unhappy customers, and I wasn't confident that I would ever see the product and that I had just wasted my money. They were still quick to respond to say, old management, and that wasn't their way anymore, and that they would deliver my product. Again, refusing a refund. That's big with them. They don't issue refunds. So if you are going to make a purchase, just know up front, you'll either get your product or you won't. But they don't issue refunds. So I decided at that moment, one of two things was going to happen. I was either out $1,300+, or I could try to make it as positive of an experience on my end as I could, to hopefully stay in their good graces and ultimately receive my products. Now, let me be clear, when you pay for any item from, any merchant anywhere in the world, you shouldn't have to play a game or get on the nice list to get what you paid for at all. But in that moment, because it was a lot of money, I decided I would do everything in my power to keep them happy, be cordial, and hopefully I thought, that could improve my chances, which sounds crazy to even say, of ultimately receiving what I ordered. So I switched gears immediately. I said, okay, let's go on this journey together. I look forward to updates. Around that time, January, February of 2020, Aniki posted, for those of you who follow the Facebook page, a long diatribe about how management had changed and it was bad before, but they were improving things, and they were committed to their customers and delivering all orders and catching up with their queue, etc. So that put my mind at ease, but there were still, even during that post, there were lots of people who were still upset, didn't believe they would change. So it did give me some hope, but I was let's say I was cautiously optimistic. So something that I did, I stayed after them. I didn't let more than a week go by when I wouldn't email them. And for the most part, they were pretty responsive within a day or two, sometimes 2-3 days. If I hadn't heard back within a few days, I would email them again. And they were always apologetic and would tell me, here's where we were in the process. So I like I said, I ordered on December 31st. It probably wasn't until April that I even got any kind of substantial update. Prior to that, it was always still in the queue, we're getting to it. But then I got the first images of, I think, 5 of the helmets cast. No paint applied, no visors or anything like that, but casts. And at this point, we had already worked out that I wanted, the Aniki offers an extension to their helmets. I have a fairly large head, so I wanted to make sure as best as possible the helmets could fit my head. So we had already worked out those details. I sent them, measurements, etc. And finally, I had these resin shots. Great. Again, can't stress enough, throughout this entire process, I remained cautiously optimistic. These images, I didn't know if they had stock images of certain helmets that they could just put in front of a customer to say, oh, your helmet is at this stage, and they hadn't even started it. But here I got my first look at what my helmets, where they were in the process, and that was exciting. Then around, the summer, June, July, I started getting emails about, oh, there was a problem in paint, and which I've read that as a common excuse. They can impress upon their customers because of the climate in Indonesia and the rainy season and the way paint cures. Sometimes there are issues. So when I got the first one of those, I thought, here we go. I'm going to be another one of these stories, here we are following the script, and it kind of left me feeling deflated. But I maintained cordial correspondence the entire time. And it was probably by July or August, I got my first paint shot of all 6 of them, or 7 of them. No gloss, no visors had been applied, but there they were painted. There were 7 of them. Again, cautiously optimistic, but I thought, what are the odds that they would have 7 of them all together in one picture at this particular stage in the process? So I thought maybe it wasn't just a stock photo they had to appease a customer, that these were actually my order. So I was excited about that. A few more weeks and months went by. Again, the entire time I'm emailing them at least once a week. And oftentimes there was no change in my status, but I was always, and this year especially, during COVID, I always encouraged their staff to stay safe. And in the back of my mind, I thought, COVID could be a big reason why this is going to stretch even further than some of the stories I was reading. But always maintained respect in my correspondence. So eventually we got to a time when they told me that visors were going in, paint gloss was happening, which was exciting to hear. It sounded like we were getting close to the end of this thing, which was incredible to even consider, again, based on a lot of the stories I had read. But in the back of my mind, even people talked about getting to the end of this process with Aniki Cosplay, paying for shipping, and then never hearing anything. So in the back of my mind, I was just always thinking, okay, when is the other shoe going to drop and this is all going to fall apart on me? But I stuck with them. Something else I felt that really worked for me as far as the correspondence, a lot of posts that I saw on Facebook indicated that they were messaging them through Facebook Messenger. Some people were emailing, but some people were using Facebook Messenger. I never dealt with that. I was strictly email. And, for those of you who know, Aniki Cosplay is located in Indonesia. I myself am in Houston, Texas. Indonesia is about 13 hours ahead. So something that I discovered probably midway through 2020, midway through the process, was that if I emailed Aniki around 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, my time, it was getting to their inbox around 8 or 9 a.m. their time. And their hours, which are posted online, are from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So I had it in my head, well, if I, envisioning that their inbox was just flooded with customers wanting updates on their stuff, I thought that if I could get to the top of their inbox right around when their business opened, I had a better shot at getting a reply faster. So that's what I started doing, like I said, mid last year. And I found that I almost always, sometimes that night, I'm sitting at home before bed and I'll get a response because, again, their time, it's the next day, it's early morning, and we could shoot off a couple emails back and forth, to discuss progress. So that worked really well. A suggestion I would have to anyone out there is figure out where you are in the world versus what time it is there, and try to get in their inbox right when they open. From that point on, correspondence was always at least within 24 hours, maybe 2 days at most, but they always got back to me fairly quickly. So that was kind of a secret avenue unlocked that really helped with communication. I will say too that from start to finish, we shared, I think it was 99 emails, and not a one of them that I can think of was initiated by Aniki Cosplay. And what I mean by that is, if there was ever a new picture to share or a new stage in the process, it was always me, hey, how you guys doing? Where are we at in this process? And they would surprise me with a picture. But I never, woke up to find a surprise email from them with a progress shot. It was always me pulling that information out, which, take that for what it's worth, but it's best to stay after them if you want updates on your stuff. I imagine their inbox is inundated with customers, both happy and angry, and it really pays to stay after them to get updates on your stuff. So finally, I started getting completed shots, which was awesome. If you're familiar, if you've seen the shots where it's on your helmet is on the tiled floor of their kind of packaging area. It's got your name on the floor in front of your helmet. And I was seeing that for all of mine, which was super exciting. And this was in December of 2020. So my next question was, great, what do we got to do to bring this thing home, wrap this thing up? And they said, what we're going to do is we're going to finish packaging them, and we'll come up with what shipping will be. You pay the shipping, and we'll send you the helmets. And it all sounded way too easy to me, again, based on reviews I'd read in the past. So they ultimately got me the shipping price. One of them shipped, the Green Ranger helmet shipped by itself in an individual box. The other 6 shipped 2 to a box. And I was sure to ask, because I had read even some people who had paid shipping, who had paid express shipping, it could still take 90 days to get their helmets. But so I was sure to ask, once I, submit this PayPal payment, when will I get my stuff? And Aniki was quick to respond and say that 2 to 3 days I'd have tracking numbers, which sounded incredible. So I sent him the money for shipping, which was not cheap, but I right near the finish line, I wanted to get my helmets here. So I sent him the money for shipping days after Christmas. So it was kind of in this nebulous window between Christmas and New Year's, and they would be closed until January 4th. I should have really just waited, but come January 4th, that Monday, 2021, I emailed them, hey, do you have my tracking numbers for me? And they got back to me almost immediately that evening. Here you go. And they were all delivered January 8th. So again, start to finish, I placed my order December 31st, 2019. I received all 7 helmets complete January 8th, 2021. So 373 days total. And honestly, it feels like winning the lottery, which sounds absurd because I paid a lot of money to win that lottery. But again, reading so many people who have had negative experiences, I can't point to specifically why I got my products when so many people haven't. All I can speak to is that I trusted the process. I stayed after updates at every stage of the process. I maintained civility and was cordial in all of my correspondence. Again, not that you should have to be to get something that you ordered. I'm just speaking on what worked well for me. And beyond that, I've seen speculation, a lot of which I believed was probably true myself, that Aniki only delivers to celebrities or influencers or someone on YouTube who has, thousands of subscribers. If you're watching this video, this is literally the second thing I've ever posted to YouTube. So I have no subscribers, I'm sure. I have no views. So it's not like I got my helmets because I would be blowing this up on social media. I'm by no means an influencer, so I can say, at least in my situation, it had nothing to do with my online presence or views I could get. I know Aniki supplies, Jason, David Frank, several of the Power Rangers, the original Power Rangers, and there's been speculation that, they get their helmets because they promote them and or you have to have a lot of followers, whatever. I said all that to say I don't have the followers, I don't have the views, I'm not an influencer, and I still got my merchandise within a year, which just it seems unheard of. When I initiated this process on December 31st, 2019, I did not pay for an express service. At the time, I was quoted 6 to 8 months and it ended up being 12 months, which again is still longer than quoted, but by no means ridiculous. So I feel incredibly fortunate, and I'm super, I mean, just beyond thrilled seeing them all in person. The red one, the green one, the white one. I've had the legacy versions of the helmets, the more recently the Hasbro version of the red and the white, you know, which are fine for display purposes, but they're glorified toys. Not necessarily cheap in their own right, but they're plastic, they're toys. But to have all of these, to see the colors and the details on some that I've never seen in real life full size before is just been incredible. Well worth the money I spent overall, absolutely. And my biggest suggestion to anyone out there would just be do your research. There are, you know, and ask questions, ask me questions. When you see social media posts from, you know, again, Wild Ranger 5 is someone else that I've thought of, but Aniki Cosplay, I can speak to the quality of their work too, which is fantastic. These are all grade A helmets, if you're familiar with how Aniki grades his helmets. The quality and the craftsmanship is immaculate. Really, really, really good stuff. But I would just say, you know, it's not cheap. Do your research so that you're comfortable. I can honestly admit, for the entirety of 2020, on top of COVID, on top of everything else, in the back of my mind, the amount I spent on these helmets was a huge concern for me. Would I ever see them? Had I wasted this money? And that weighed heavy on me. I couldn't imagine having that burden in the back of my mind for 2-3+ years. So I feel incredibly fortunate that it didn't take that long. I'm super happy about that fact. And if you're looking to make a purchase like this, I wish you all the best of luck. Thanks for listening.